David W. Leonard, Leonard. Now I want to do my birth date just like that, and my serial number.
Go ahead. Birth date anyway.
6/20/38. There we go. And that's not 2038.
My name is Roselyn Leonard. Leonard. Roselyn. And I hate being called Roselyn. My mother hated it even more. So just make it Roselyn and we'll be fine. We've been down to New Orleans for the first time in 1963 when our children were 3 and 1.
Yeah.
And
we didn't bring them.
I had been chairman of Berkeley Corps in California. David was a student at the University of California. And we left them with my mother up in Flint, Michigan. And she was of the opinion that she might never see us again because we were coming to Louisiana as an interracial couple in 1963 to register voters with Congress of Racial Equality.
And I cut my beard and hair real short.
Which was very
Mustache
good.
Mustache very short too.
Very, very good. And I'm not going to tell that story, it'll go too long. We got stopped by the police on the way down, and there's an interesting story there, but we won't tell that one. Then we wound up in Louisiana, and we were staying down in, I've forgotten the name of the city, just outside of Baton Rouge.
Plaquemine,
right. That we were in the little town of Plaquemine, not Plaquemine Parish, which is where Leander Perez lived, and he invited Corps there and said he would put any Corps members that came into his parish in the prison that was out in the swamp, and if we could find, and with enough bread and water for 30 days, and if we could find a way out, we were fine. So we didn't bother going to Plaquemine Parish. So they wouldn't let David and I work in the same parish because we were an interracial couple. So I was up in New Roads, and
Hammond.
David was in Hammond.
That's not New Orleans yet.
And we came down to New Orleans together for the first time. I had never been here with my grandmother. My grandmother would not come anywhere near an evil city like New Orleans. We were up in Alexandria at my great aunt's house, and so we came down to New Orleans for the first time in 1963. Spent very little time being tourists, spent most of the time in bed together because we hadn't seen each other since we only got to see each other a week if we were there for meetings, so it had been a couple of weeks. But we stayed at the hotel by the Dewdrop Inn, which was where they put up musicians who came into town. So it was like a really, I didn't know that for years. Till I went by the place because a friend of mine was working on reading, and I went, that place looks familiar. So we were part of New Orleans history before we even knew that, we were part of it. So the next time I came down, we had moved to Michigan because my father was sick. And I had been planning to go to Europe, but that didn't happen. We were stuck in Michigan. And David was teaching anthropology at Wayne County Community College. And I was working as a secretary there and as a substitute teacher, which was funny because I don't have any kind of degree. And Margaret Mead was going to be here at the Monteleone. And she was my hero. Studying anthropology, which was his major. And, I gotta go see Margaret Mead. And at that time, our oldest daughter had gotten involved with one of those communes, and she had moved into the commune, and I figured that if I got our camper, which had the back of it off, and it was, like a really fancy kind of camper. I mean,
it was a bus.
It was a bus, right? School bus with the back half, and the floor was beautiful wood. And the inside of it had nothing. No stove, no... Did it have a stove? I don't remember.
No, we froze our butts off.
No, all there was beds, and not a bathroom, nothing, it was just... So I told her that I was coming down to Louisiana to go see Margaret Mead, and did she want to come along, and, she could invite a couple of friends. And so she did, and her younger sister did. So I came down, and one of David's teachers could get off to come down, and was, for him a tax deductible trip, and the whole thing. So he's riding on the bus and helping to pay for the gas and helping to drive. So, and not paying any attention to the girls, which was a marvelous thing because they ranged in age from 11 to 16, and 5 girls. And we had a ball, and our daughter never went back to the community. And I was very disappointed with Margaret B., but that's another story, another time. Well, she told me that black people in the ghetto did not play with their children. And when I told her she was wrong, she told me that it was in the literature. And when I told her that the literature is wrong, she told me I was prejudiced. So I gave up. And so, as I said, it's a whole other story. So we came back down here.
And next year, right after well, that's February maybe. February of 75.
That was after my dad died. My dad died the previous year. So I didn't have to worry about him anymore.
And we stayed here for 5 months maybe.
We weren't planning to.
And learned about street performing.
We weren't planning to. What happened was that the bus that I went down broke down in Mississippi. Mississippi's been bad for us for things, but not lately. I would. Anyhow.
She missed my head.
Anyhow, we got towed into New Orleans, and they took the bus to get it repaired. And it took them a year to repair it, almost.
It's an old bus.
Yeah, it was an old bus. And we've driven older ones. But we came down. We booked a whole bunch of gigs in Florida where we performed before, and we knew people, and we had a whole tour set up. We were going to pick up the bus and drive to Florida and do our things, and then what happened?
We have no idea what would happen if we had done that.
No, I mean, what happened when we didn't do that?
The bus broke down after 13 miles. So we had a place to stay in the transmission parking lot. Well, they fixed the transmission again. Took them a long time.
5 months.
Did it take 5 months? No, it didn't take 5 months. No, we had it after that.
I guess we stayed about a month after we got it because we were.
I built a bed inside it and other stuff. And
we had.
we hitchhiked.
You had gone back.
Yeah, I'd gone back with our older daughter, gone up there and got in the car and brought the car down so we could have wheels.
And when did she come down?
She was there originally. She went up with me.
That's true, she did.
And what year is this?
That was 1975.
75.
Yeah. And Roselyn was in the Jackson Square with the guitar. Broke. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?
And I was singing the blues.
Singing the blues. We're out in the grass and part,
Yeah, the guitar is laying out there, and I'm sitting there singing, and I really had the blues, and I was really singing the blues. And I had my eyes closed, and I was, singing the blues and saying a prayer. And I opened my eyes, and there was $7 and that was in a half an hour. And I had been working as a paralegal, I guess they're called now. It's just another word for legal secretary. And I was making $7 an hour. So getting $7 for half an hour just for playing my guitar, oh yes! So I went, David, we eat tonight and we can make money.
So we played around the fountain for, a few weeks. We noticed the winos quite varied. There was a very dapper wino, always very different wino. And then there was one that was a really great dancer, and we watched him dematerialize into hardly able to walk, and then he disappeared for a while, came back all nice and shiny again, and dancing really good, and deteriorated again. Okay, so meantime we got a couple of gigs on Bourbon Street. The girl that hired us, a young lady, and she said, "Did you write those 2 songs? Which 2 songs? St. James Infirmary and St. Louis Blues?" I said, "Okay, so this is the woman who's hiring us. We will not make fun of her."
But we sort of both went,
Uh-huh.
this is the person who's in charge of hiring the musicians, and that's what she knows about music? Yeah, duh.
So, and then we got a gig at a hotel where a film crew was staying. And that lasted 13 weeks until we were on Angela Davis's TV show, interviewed, and they asked us, "Are you married?" And we said yes. And the next night we went to work, we weren't working there anymore.
She had been deluged with phone calls all day long,
So this is 75.
complaining about her having an interracial married couple performing at her hotel.
Oh, okay. Well, let's
Back to the square. Back to square one.
we found New Orleans very interesting. I thought it was, a southern city. But lo and behold, we found hippies here, health food things going on, self-awareness
More health
projects
food
going
stores
on.
then than there are now.
And it was kind of a nice surprise. And,
And we enjoyed it totally,
and
we got to work at the Jazz Fest. We were staying up in what's now Snug Harbor upstairs, and it wasn't Snug Harbor then, no.
no,
And this group were making the tea. They still sell the tea there. It's a totally different. I mean, it's gone from them, and they got tired of it and went back home to Minnesota to other people. And it's funny because we have no idea who does it now. But every time I go up there and buy tea, I said, we worked this booth in '75, and people go, "Oh, really?" But that's how we got to see the Jazz Fest, and we got to be there for the whole Jazz Fest for free because we were working, and you only had to work
she
for
got a
it.
sunburn.
First time in my life.
She had shorts on.
I had on short shorts, and I had on a beautiful leather top with fringe in the front and nothing in the back except the tie up here and the tie down here. And it didn't occur to me that I could get a sunburn. But I woke up Monday morning and my back hurt. It hurt. And I said, "David, my back is killing me." And he turned me over and looked at me. He says, "Yeah, well, you got a sunburn." I said, "I can't get a sunburn." He said, "Well, you got one." I said, "You mean that every time you get red in the summer, white folks like that feels like this?" He said, "Yep." I said, "I'm never going to get another sunburn." And I never had. And I think anybody that gets a sunburn a second time is stupid. For one thing, they cause cancer. For another thing, they hurt.
So we went back up to Detroit in the summer, and a year later we moved to California and decided to come down here for Mardi Gras.
Which we had.
And we did, and that was a lot of fun. We stayed here for a couple of weeks, and
And we came down to Mardi Gras from Detroit the first time. We came down.
that was when we came down to pick up the bus. We came down. We had no idea about Mardi Gras happening, and lo and behold, we got here just as it was
Right,
starting.
right. That's the
People hang out on the fence in the Jackson Square singing and fireworks going off. And so wow.
It was the first night. It was
12th night.
12th night, yeah. And there were fireworks, and we were driving around. We picked up the bus. We drove around town and stayed for Mardi Gras before we hit out for our 13
Bus
miles.
broke down. Well,
Yeah, on the way
whenever
out.
it did.
We wound up in the swamp somewhere, and they had to come and tow us back. And we were not
And we
very
met
happy.
Al Jaffe, I think that time.
He was the person who
He
founded
founded
Preservation Hall.
Preservation Hall. And he liked us, and
Liked our
we stayed
music.
for 2 weeks living out of our VW van. And then
That's when we came
the
to
next year we
California.
came back again, and that time Al had invited us to stay on one of his properties that was half a block off of Bourbon Street. So that was a lot of fun. Oh, is that when we were filmed by the film crew? We had a film
Oh
crew
yeah,
from Japan.
that's true.
We call it the Four Samurai and a Christian.
And they paid us.
Yeah, it was for a big TV show in Japan. And the Christian was the son of missionaries, Caucasian, and the samurai were Japanese. The director spoke perfect English, and the cameraman spoke no English whatsoever. So it was, and it was a nice thing. We still have a copy of it. We haven't seen it in years now.
But they also
Had our-
filmed the two youngest, the ones I showed you the picture
Yeah.
of. And she was 4 and he was
Yeah.
2, and they're cute as could be. And Autumn, when we would play on Royal Street, would wander in and out of the stores, and everybody knew her up and down the street. And you know, we gotten used to her going in and out of the stores, and the store owners knew she wasn't going to steal anything or break anything, and they loved her. She's beautiful and, you know, very friendly, and just, and it's amazing how much freedom we gave our children and how little they gave theirs. Yeah, they're like, my mother gave me plenty of freedom. I wandered all over the neighborhood when I was a kid, and they wandered up further than they ever dreamed that 2-year-olds could walk. 2-year-old can walk across a mountain all by themselves. 2-year-olds. No, were they 2 then? Yeah.
2.
I mean, you know, they could have been killed by coyotes. They could have been taken away by a big buzzard. You know, it's like we thought they were still
Rattlesnakes.
outside the kitchen window, playing in the sand.
She's taking us back to Topanga,
Yeah.
where
Where we were living when we came back here the second, third, and fourth time.
something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have to write it all down, get it straight.
Yeah, well, Autumn was born in 77, and we were still in California, and
And
Stormy
she
was
4,
born,
so I was 81.
and Stormy was born in 80 in California, and we had been to the jazz festival as often as we could, and I guess we went, that was when the Jazz Fest office was still down across over by St. Claude, and we went upstairs in the office, and we took the stroller upstairs, and we had the 2 kids there, and we were asking if we could play at the Jazz Fest. And Quentin Davis said, well, play something for me, and we did. He said, okay, you got a gig. And we've been playing there ever since, except a couple of times they didn't book us, and one time we got stuck on a gig on a tour. We got stuck in Colorado.
We went to Europe a few times, I think, during Jazz Fest time. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter,
that's
anyhow.
right. I
Yeah,
think
so
it
I
was
would say about Chaffee that time, and next year we came back, we stayed with him at a different place over in Tremay that was his. It's a lot of fun. And
So we were still going back and forth.
Yeah.
And you played at Preservation Hall when you were
No.
staying?
No,
we
we
didn't
played
play
it
there, no.
there since then with our band, but we haven't played it then.
Did Preservation Hall exist then?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm
yeah.
trying to remember how,
Yeah.
It was
very well known.
well known then. I mean, we had seen people from Preservation Hall performing up at a festival we were playing in Toronto when Arlie was 9.
Yeah, maybe so.
So
That's
that
when
would have
everything
been
in
that would have been in
Detroit.
'69. So yeah, Preservation Hall has been going for a while, and
and Jazz Fest started when? In the
71,
70s?
70, 71, I think.
I don't know. Look at the latest
So-
thing and see what year it is and subtract.
Yeah, yeah.
The latest program you can probably see at the library, and or go up to their office and ask them. Have you interviewed any people at Preservation Hall
No.
or at Jazz Fest?
No.
You should.
We should, yeah.
And
This is-
they're both very amenable to this. Besides which, they can probably figure on getting a band up to your college to perform.
That would be awesome.
We wouldn't mind that either.
That would be awesome.
So, where were we? Oh, coming back and forth to.
Yeah, back and forth. We went back and forth for several years between here and Los Angeles area and other places in between.
Play all sorts of festivals and fairs.
And it got to the point where our kids to stay into school for a whole year in the same school. So they had to make a terrible decision between here or Los Angeles area.
Well, we lived up in Topanga, so that it was really one beautiful place for another beautiful place. So that wasn't the deciding factor.
Music was the deciding factor.
That was part of the deciding factor. The other part was that our daughter Autumn, the youngest, was in kindergarten, and she wanted to join the Brownies.
This was in California.
And I had brought, all the material to make her a brownie uniform. And she came home crying from one of the meetings one day because some of the kids had called her a nigger. So I called up the scout leader to talk to her and suggest that we have a meeting of the mothers and, discuss how we could, handle this. And she said, oh, that doesn't matter. It's just from kids being kids. It's not important. I said, I feel like it's extremely important and that we really should do this. And she says, no, you're just being too sensitive. Just forget about it.
So we moved out.
We figured that the chances of it happening in New Orleans were much slimmer because, for one thing, people knew to keep the boundaries from hurting as much as possible. There was still a great deal of segregation when we came down, and there was still a lot of racism, but not in the school that they were in. They went to the Little Red Schoolhouse right here in the French Quarter, which has since been closed down, which is a shame. It was a free school, not quite as free as the free school that my two older ones had been to in Detroit, where they got to choose their own teachers, which is my idea of, yes, that's a free school. And they got to get together to critique the teachers. And it wasn't like you write something nasty. It was that you sat down and you talked to the teachers about what you liked about them and what you felt that they should work on, just like the teachers would talk to you about what they liked about you and what they felt you should work on, so that it was a cooperative. This wasn't like that, but the kids were in elementary school while they had been in junior high school before, so there was a big difference there too. But it was a great school, and the kids loved it. And we stayed here. Kids grew up, went to high school, went to college, and then Katrina hit.
Yeah.
So during the time they were in school, were you guys were you
Oh,
getting
yeah.
gigs in the French Quarter?
Oh, we were doing a lot of street performing. We found street performing we could make better money than we could at the bar. We didn't drink. In bars, I like to drink. We could not work if we decided we didn't need to, so I had something else to do. So it worked really well, and we were making good money on the streets at that time. So
We also were doing gigs, and people would
parties
see us on the streets and they invite us for parties, and we do get invited out of the city to do things and get paid for it. So, we were having a good time in
Oh yeah, we got to go to France.
Italy.
We got to go to Italy. We got to go to Italy for a street performers festival in Milan. That was
All expenses paid.
Kids were 7 and 5, I think. It was '86, and we told ourselves, one, we're not paying to go to Europe. 2, when we do get to go to Europe, we're going to stay for a while. So we did. We stayed for
6 months.
6 months.
We were there from late May to
Playing on
December.
the streets, and we
All
went to
over.
almost all the capitals of Europe. Saw the
With 2
running of the
kids.
bulls and Pamplona.
I got to run with the bulls. And my son Stormy wanted to. He was 6 years old. I said, no, you can't run with the bulls. You're too little. And he said, those kids are running with the bulls. They're as little as I am. Yeah, but it might be their bulls.
They speak the language. Whatever. it's
But
still
even so,
fucking
one
us.
little girl got gored.
Mm.
So it wasn't serious, it was just a scratching blow.
Baby
but
bulls.
and it was baby bulls, but, baby bulls and little kids. Not my kid. I was running and running and running, and I realized that the bulls were catching up. And I had seen people try to climb up on the fences, and there were people sitting there and push them back down in front of the bulls. And so I knew I was running out of breath, and that there was no way that I was going to be able to get up on the fence and get pushed down. And then I saw David and the kids, and I dove under the fence, and I made it. It was so much fun. I mean, it was only about that much room under the fence, You know how the
I don't
the
think it was
fences
that
are.
much.
At any rate, there was enough for me to get under it, and I did. And I was climbed up on the fence too, and it was like, yay, I did it. And the bulls came by very shortly thereafter. I would have been in trouble if I
Oh,
had
wow.
died. But it was fun. But then, the next year, we did that year. No, that was the year we stayed there for the whole 6 months.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Early
we
May to
met a lot of people and
December.
made a lot of friends, and we're going back and forth from here to Europe in the summer, which is a great time to get away from New Orleans. And the last time we had gone was in 83, 80,
What, last time we went to?
before Katrina?
It was in 97. 97 we got taken to Italy by Italy's biggest pop act, and we opened for him. We went all over Italy, staying in 5-star hotels, traveling in the band bus, which is really cool.
We went over again in the 2000s after that, didn't we?
Well, we went back after the storm. We went to Finland.
Well, that was
with
after the
last
storm, but I
man.
mean before. I thought we went. Oh, well, anyhow, no point in arguing. we could go home and look it up. David keeps pretty good notes. We got booked into South Carolina at what's that hotel, that island?
Hilton Head.
Hilton Head, which is one of those. And so they were paying our way and paying us to come. And so, of course, we had to, do street singing on the way, leave early, do street singing on the way.
And we sold a song, the rights to a song, to a medical group in London.
Kiss It and Make It Better.
And, yeah, it was
Which is a funny story, too, because I wrote that song in order to be on the Arsenio Hall show in California, and they didn't take it. And they didn't book us.
It didn't sound like it was written by a woman.
No, that's not the song that was about.
Oh, really?
No, that was another song,
Okay. Anyhow,
which I hardly ever do anymore.
so where are we?
We are in Hilton Head, heading north and going up to
Oh, yeah,
Vermont. And
spring
all
of
sorts of-
'75. We did a bunch of gigs up on the East Coast, and we'd never done that before, but we had some money from selling the movie. The songs.
So that was paying the expenses here.
And put
remaking-
a roof on our house, which would have been really messed up in Katrina.
We got the loan to do that. No, that was, we got the loan to do that from Fidelity Bank. That was.
Well, we were just rolling in the money.
No, we weren't rolling.
Anyhow,
He's a Republican kid, like, it's an amazing consciousness to be raised in a ghetto. I mean, my mother lived in the funeral home, which is one of the biggest houses there, and she was married to my stepfather, who, I rode in Cadillacs as a kid. So, but I have the consciousness of my later years where you fight for the last piece of meat on the plate. You didn't really fight for it, but whoever got it was like, and I think it was me once that got the last pork chop, and I was laughing about it, and when the kids snaked it off my plate and took a bite out of it before I could. So after that, I managed to get the last piece of something, put it in my mouth before I laughed about it. But he never had that. David didn't eat crust on bread. David didn't eat the fat on bacon. David, he was a child. His father was a retired military officer, so he lived a perfectly comfortable life. My stepfather was the mailman in a factory. He took the mail around and delivered it to the various offices and things like that, and did errands and stuff. And this is a grown man. And in addition to that, he worked as a barber, and in addition to that, he worked as a bartender at the country club. And my mother occasionally worked there as a waitress, and she worked in the downtown in the stores as an ironer, as a seamstress, and stuff like that. And I worked as a hat check girl and as babysitter. Money was something that after we left the funeral home was something you had to work for. While for David,
I don't know what.
you worked.
I worked. I chopped down trees, dug holes, raised rabbits.
All in his dad's 5 acres walnut grove, right?
True. It was really nice. It was really nice.
And he worked also playing his trumpet.
Absolutely. Played in the dance band in high school. We played for dances. That was cool. So we were seasoned musicians by the time we got here.
Actually, I wasn't really. I had sung with my sister at church and things like that, but I had never really done any professional music. And when we were in the service, I was in the Air Force, so he was in the Air Force too. We both went in for various reasons. And I had a couple of friends who wanted to sing, and so we put together a group called Ladies in the Lord, which is interesting because that communion that I was telling you about that my daughter went to was made up of ladies and lords. It was lady this, lord that. I thought that was interesting. It's part of the reason I stayed there for a while, is because of the connection and it just seemed cosmic. But I sang in the group, and we won a bass contest, and we were sent off to the next base. David was playing in the band behind us, and he saw me singing solo. I didn't win that one because there was one other girl running for it, and she was white, and the three of us who were singing all considered ourselves black, although Mary Diaz was as white as you, but she had black hair, and she was from Hawaii, and so she considered herself black. And part of the reason there was such a fight about getting Hawaii in the Union is because the southern states considered that they would be letting in another black state, so they didn't want to let Hawaii in. Same reason they don't want to let Puerto Rico in, right? Prejudice is so stupid. Anyhow, we sang and we won, and they decided to send us on tour of bases all across the country, and David was third trumpet in the band at the time, and the first and second trumpet were both working gigs that they didn't want to give up, so David got to be the trumpet player. And we had lost at the command level, Ladies in the Lord had lost at the command level to four sergeants singing for barbershop quartet, and they won nationally. So they were going on tour, and the idea of having a tour with just 4 staff sergeants, you gotta have girls. So those of us who had come in second to them, they picked us to go on a tour. So we toured, and that's how I got to know David.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
At least our kids think so.
I think so, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
You think I'd say no?
So when did you guys move to New Orleans and stay here?
Lived
And
and
what
stayed
was...
probably in
81.
yeah, we 87 or 88, I think. 88, yeah, 87. We rented a place and left a friend in charge while we went. And we got back, and the friend in charge had really screwed up. So
We lost a bunch of stuff.
we lost a bunch of stuff. But then we moved into, we'd been offered a room by an artist in the Jackson Square. And so we took her up on it, and this meant 2 years with her. And I'm thinking, we're paying so much for these 2 rooms, and we don't have money next month, we should be out. We're not, so let's buy a house.
No, it wasn't let's buy a house. It was that we were moving into a bigger place.
Yeah, let's move into a
We had a dog, and we had 2 kids left at home because the other 2 were already gone. And we decided that we wanted a house. And she said that she knew a house that was maybe for sale that we could buy on a rent and buy. And she had helped decorate it. And then she and the guy had broken up, and he had married someone else. And but she felt he owed her a favor, and so she called. And it turned out that he had moved out of the house back up to where the woman that he married lived, because she opened the door to the wrong person and got raped, and didn't want to live in Louisiana anymore. She wouldn't stay. She went back home with her 2 daughters. So he was glad to have somebody in the house paying rent, along with an artist who lived on the other side. They were both artists, and they both played out had their artwork out on the square. And so we moved into one side, and the artist was on the other side. And it's not exactly a duplex. It was originally a wagon wheel factory back in the 1880s. So our side is cement floor, while the other side is 3 feet up higher, where the family lived. So it was, but the guy who had it just before us had put a kitchen in the back of it. Not very well done, but it was there, and so a kitchen and a bathroom.
And lofts, they had lofts, so, you know, it was livable.
For the 2 daughters.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we were quite happy with it. Still are. It's
Yeah.
a marvelous house. We just got a reverse mortgage on it, and we're going to buy it back as soon as we can.
And that was in '90 we moved into the house.
And we bought it in '93.
Yeah.
It was interesting, no, '92, because he had 3 years before he had to pay off the woman who was born in the house and was selling it to him a balloon mortgage. So that in effect she loaned him the money. He borrowed the money for the down payment, and she was loaning him the rest of the money with no interest for 3 years, but then he had to pay her all of it. And I sort of thought that, you know, she figured he wasn't going to be able to do it, and she'd get her house back and she'd have all that money too to fix it up. But when we bought it, we took her the money, she was glad to get the money. She didn't want to be,
You know,
she didn't want to be
lady.
bothered with the house.
Yeah.
She had been born in it, and she lived in it, you know, until she married. And she had a nice house out in the suburbs, and she was not the least bit interested in that house. It was just, she was very happy that we bought it and that we were bringing her the money. And what happened was that we were paying off the down payment loan, and when that was paid off, then we were going to have to do the balloon mortgage if we wanted it, and if we could get the money up. If we couldn't, then we'd have to pay him, you know. And if he couldn't get it up, we'd have to move. So I went to the savings and loan company and explained what was happening, and said, "Can we borrow the money to buy the house?" I said, "We've been paying it now for a year and a half, and you know, I figured, you know, when it comes time for the 3 years is up, you know, can we get it?" She said, "Huh, why don't we get it now?" And she was marvelous. I really adored her. And so we got the money, we paid off the thing, and we had the house. Oh boy! We had to take a trip up to his place to get him to sign off on it. And then it was ours. It was ours, and it needed a new roof. And we couldn't find. We were still paying on the loan, which was $25,000 to her.
I don't remember.
Yeah, and we were paying regularly. Our thing was good, but the savings and loan business was in trouble about then, and they wouldn't loan us any money. And my daughter was working for a real estate company in California, and so she was telling me all the things to do: get your credit cleaned up, do this, do that, to the other. And we were doing it, and we were clean, spick and span, and I couldn't find anybody to loan. So she started trying to find people outside of Louisiana, figuring, you know, that it was prejudice that was keeping us from getting a loan in Louisiana. So she was going to find, you know, people, but people outside of Louisiana didn't understand the house.
100-year-old house?
Actually, they didn't know it was a 100-year-old house, because for some reason or other, the record said that it would have been
Built in 54.
which I assume was when it was remodeled. But that's when it went into the records, in 54. When actually it was, we saw stuff in the attic from the 1880s and from the 20s, and you know, it was, and the old lady's parents'
And
pictures.
it was built with square nails.
And the inside walls are made of heart pine. In order to get slabs this big, it has to be about this big, the heart. And they don't let pine trees grow that big anymore. No. They cut them down and ship them to Japan, where they are turned into sawdust and made into that packed up stuff that melted all over New Orleans when Katrina hit, because it can't stand water. And I go, why don't they just make furniture out of the wood? And I guess they get more money shipping it over to Japan, and they cutting it all up and shipping that crap back to sell for. And anyhow, we had one of them that got lost in the flood because it sort of collapsed in the water.
Furniture or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a shelf with stuff.
Yeah, so we've known New Orleans musicians, and they've known us, and we know a lot of songs, and a lot of people think we're pretty good.
Including us. But we were singing out on the street, singing, and I had looked at the paper and saw this guy who always came by and gave us $1.
He's
Every
always
time-
in his dapper suit
He's
with a
always dressed
briefcase.
up, and, he'd come by and he would give us $1.
Except for Christmas time, he gave us $2.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw a picture of him in a newspaper with something to do with a bank. So we saw him one day, and I said, "Excuse me, could you help us? We've been trying to get a loan so that we can buy the house that we're living in, and nobody will give us a loan." And he says, "Here, you go see these people, and they'll take care of you." So this was somebody way uptown on Carrollton, and we went up there, and we went through all the loops and bells and whistles, and they turned us down. So I called the gentleman who had been so sweet and said, "They turned us down." He said, "Don't worry about a thing." So the next day, the man who had been working with us and had called us up and told us the day before that we'd been turned down, and he said, "Who do you know at this bank?" I said, "Why did we get the loan?" He said, "Just answer my question first. Who do you know at this bank?" So we told him. He said, "Well, it helps to know the president." $1! $1 is all that man ever put in the case, and he saved our house for us because we had to have a roof on it, and Katrina hit the next year. If we hadn't had the roof, we'd have lost the house. And there was not enough insurance on the house to replace it. There was barely enough insurance on the house to repair it. But we used the house, the money, judiciously to improve it.
And we're still doing that.
With every bit of money we get. And we just got a reverse mortgage, so we have more money to repair it. And we're going to Airbnb the other side because the person was living over there long since moved, and somebody else moved in, and they moved out. And it wasn't a place that you could rent out to anybody except a friend or somebody who was pretty down and out, because it had no real kitchen. The bathroom was pretty cool. They had a toilet, sink, and bathtub, and shower.
But it wasn't a separate room.
No.
It had a screen
No.
in front of the toilet.
Yeah, that's true.
So we've been working on it, and we're close to getting it out to work.
But we put a kitchen in. We had to put, all they were using before was a microwave and a hot plate and a toaster oven, so that wasn't anything that you could use. What I was thinking of doing was renting it out for Section 8. And you have to pass really strenuous things. And I called and tried to get an appointment, and I called and I tried to get an appointment. And they never, ever called me back. So I went, no, that's not working. So we had taken all of our stuff that we had in storage and put it in the house over there so that we could, not have to pay storage since we weren't getting any money anymore. Right? The money was just about enough to pay the storage. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were very grateful to Fidelity Bank. I don't mind saying the bank. I'm not going to tell you who the president was at the time because he would be so embarrassed. He's so sweet. But he's retired now anyway. So when we went in this time to try and get another loan, we didn't get it. So we did the reverse mortgage instead, which hurt my feelings. And I found out just this week that before he left, President Obama had signed into law a thing where you could get money to fix up your house for, probably about what we wound up getting through the reverse mortgage, because we had to pay the
closing costs, this cost, that cost, and the other cost.
And
And a few more
and
besides.
the real estate agent who was doing it, and yeah, you know, and we wound up getting about 300,000 out of the house, but we don't get it. We only get about half of that, maybe. And they gave us 1/4 of it so far. I think it's looking at $65,000, so that we've been to get to the house as fast as we can, so that we can get the other side rented out, Airbnb it, and start making $1,000 a week. Cross your fingers, cross your toes, cross your eyes, and hold your nose, and buy it back, which is our goal. And Katrina was funny, actually. We had just gotten back from that trip, all up and down the country. And
15,000 miles we driven, and we got back in the middle of August, and wow, let's check out the air conditioner. We did the air conditioner for almost 2 weeks, and it took us several months to pay it off.
we haven't used it
The
since.
house was not made for that kind of
heat and cooling. And so the other thing we did was we went downtown to sing and make some money, because of course as soon as we got back, we paid off all of our bills, we enrolled in school and bought our books for the year, right?
Enrolled in school?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
I'm
were
taking
going-
Spanish.
Oh.
At Delgado.
The second semester coming up, I'm learning how to speak it now.
And I don't remember what I took the second semester. First
Oh.
semester I'd taken a creative writing class, yeah. And I think I was going to take another one, a second one or something like that. But instead, Katrina came. We were downtown, down in the French Quarter, making music over on Royal Street, and we're noticing buildings are getting boarded up. What's going on?
What's going on?
And there was nobody on the street. We weren't making any money. So we decided to go home. And that night I got a call from Michigan from my girlfriend. And she says, Roselyn, you can come up and stay with us if you need to. And I go, why do we need to come up stay with you? We just left visiting you. She said, but there's a storm coming. I said, what? She said, there's a hurricane coming. Now, all the time we had lived here, there had never been a big hurricane. I mean, nothing that anybody was concerned about. And I said, well, don't worry. I said, cities give off heat, and hurricanes go all around them. And the places around hurricanes, especially on the east side, are the places most devastated by hurricanes. We'll be fine in the city. And she said, well, okay, but you have a place to stay if you need to. And I said, thanks, love you. And then that was Friday night, Saturday night?
Saturday night, yeah.
Sunday morning, our daughter, who was in college, in grad school in Austin, Texas, calls us at 6 in the morning
Some ungodly hour.
and says, what are you doing there? And I said, well, a minute ago I was sleeping. She said, you gotta get out of there. You've gotta get out of there, mother. There's a storm coming. I said, oh, Adrian, don't be so... Autumn, right, it was Autumn, not Adrian. Adrian was the one that was trying to help us get the money to buy the house. Autumn is the one that was a student at the time. And she made she came to town and made a movie about taking a film of the city and what have you. And she didn't it was just for a student, like yours, right? And she didn't have the money to buy the rights to all the music that was in it. Mm-hmm. So she didn't, do anything with it except use it to get A's in class. But it's beautiful. Anyhow, she said, you've got to get out of there. And we said, oh, Autumn, don't be an alarmist. We'll be okay. She said, Mother, if you don't get out of there and you get killed, I'm going to kick your coffin. And we were cracking up. And I said, what if you can't find our bodies? It's not funny now after Katrina, but it was hilarious at the moment. And she said, well, I'll kick your picture. Anything. And she was crying when she hung up the phone. And I had gone downstairs to talk on the extension, and David was talking on the phone still in bed. And I went to the bottom of the stairs, and he had come to the top, and he was looking down at me. I was looking up at him, and I says, well, you think we got to get out of here so Autumn doesn't kick our coffin? We were laughing, and we said, yeah, we would pack up and leave.
And then the mayor said, if you decide to stay, be sure to take an axe with you to the attic. That kind of said a lot to me.
But I hadn't heard that until later. But that was part of the reason that David was willing to go. And we spent, you know, like boarding up the windows, figuring out what to take upstairs, be sure you've got the deed to your house, your insurance, but you know, all the list down the list. And we have added to that list since then. Take everything out of your refrigerator, wash it out with Clorox, and leave the door open. Because if you leave food in the refrigerator, when you come back, you have no refrigerator. There's nothing you can do with it but put it out in the road. There were lots and lots of refrigerators lining the streets of New Orleans, and nobody wanted them. It was like they had to pick them up and throw them in the dump in the swamps, and it was awful. But that's what happened to the refrigerators. But so since then, we've had 2 hurricanes since then.
Yeah.
Both times we put all of our food that we could carry in coolers to go with us, and moved everything upstairs, boarded up the windows. But nothing's been seriously bad since then. The last one, we didn't leave.
We didn't leave.
We didn't
In fact, we
leave.
went and cut the tree down during the storm.
Right. A good tree had fallen during a previous storm, I guess. The trees
Yeah.
came down during Katrina. We lost part of the mulberry and it died, which meant that we don't have as many birds. Help.
Hmm?
I can't, I'm losing the name of the birds that I love so much.
Mockingbirds.
I'm not getting senile or anything. Yes, I am. Anyhow,
How would you know?
yeah, how would you know? How do you know? Am I getting... Well, we saw that movie. She knew
Yeah, I
until
know.
it was too late and she couldn't help herself anymore. It was funny.
I can't find the bathroom. That was in the movie. She had to go to the bathroom, but she couldn't find it.
In her house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow.
So what has it been like? You mentioned quite a few obstacles as an interracial couple before Katrina, and
Yeah.
then were there issues, prejudice in the aftermath of Katrina?
Probably, but we weren't paying attention to it, and it wasn't affecting us specifically that we know of. We had an agent in California who told us that people were out there were turning us down for gigs because of our interracial couple, and we had an agent up in Detroit that was telling us the same thing. So it wasn't limited to Louisiana, and we couldn't get an agent down here that would handle us at all, even though, you know, at that time we were still making very good money traveling to Europe, and, you know, we were doing fine. So we just sort of shrugged it off. I mean, what are you going to do? Go, you got to hire me. I don't care what you say, you know. But what really hurts me is people who are good-hearted and don't know any better, who tell me, like the scout leader, that blacks are putting too much emphasis on it. No, we're not.
Hmm.
If we were really serious about how horribly we get treated, we kill all of you, but we don't live that way. Most blacks are Christians. Most blacks are. That we probably have the same percentage of crooks that white people do, but there's more emphasis on ours. And we certainly get killed more compared to our numbers. Our roommate, the guy that we stayed with after Katrina because we didn't have enough
Yeah.
money, we couldn't fix our own house.
Stayed with him for 3 years.
Michael, we lived with for 3 years almost, and he's a wonderful person, except that he is a racist. I mean, you know,
You don't know it.
how could he keep us living in his house and be a racist? You know, you think that's impossible, Roselyn. You're just, but he
So-
shows me a list of how there were a lot more black people that were in jail than there were white people. I said, yeah, but white people could do the same amount of crimes, and if they were in jail in a percentage-wise, there would be a lot more of them. But blacks get arrested more often, get charged more often, get convicted more often, and get longer salaries, longer sentences. And is that your phone?
Oh, that might be. Evidently.
Anyhow, and I have a girlfriend that was in Zanta, which is an organization that's all over the world, all races, all religions, and it's to help raise up women. It's originally founded for business women. It's the only non-aviation organization that Amelia Earhart ever belonged to. And she and I were members, and we've agreed to disagree. You know, I don't send her messages of blacks being murdered, and she doesn't send me information of how blacks are criminals.
Roselyn has now, for 10 years, put together a festival called Lady Fest, and it emphasizes women. It's books, and it's about 4 or 5 days long. It's, you get books people into various clubs during that period of time, and that's had a big influence on a number of women who are out in front now.
Yeah, women. A lot of women who were singing on the streets and just beginning in clubs had never played in a festival, and they've played it. They're playing or have played and will play again at Jazz Fest and the other big festivals. And when I started Lady Fest, there were maybe one woman a day played at the Jazz Fest.
Leading it,
fronting the band. And there were more in the gospel tune, of course, because that is much more black than anything else. But for the rest of it, it was very little. And now there are frequently like 5 a day, you know. And I feel that Lady Fest, I mean, the Times contributed to it too, because women are stepping out more and trying harder. But I think that Lady Fest was one of the things that pushed it, especially since, you know, like most of the major recent performers were on Lady Fest first. So, yes!
So one of the goals of this is to actually let people who are not from New Orleans, may have never been to New Orleans, may never come to New Orleans, understand a little bit more about New Orleans. Is there something you would want to tell those people, the people who have only sort of the media version of New Orleans?
Come down and see it for yourself. It's beautiful. It's just looking at the gardens in New Orleans is enough to make you glad you came. And you don't have to go to Mardi Gras. You don't have to go to Jazz Fest. My favorite festival actually is the French Quarter Fest because it's free. And it's getting bigger than Jazz Fest. And it's spreading out more and more. And we've actually been booked into it a couple of times. But we like to play on Royal Street during it because we usually make a lot of money. But they're putting more and more stages up, and there are fewer and fewer places to play. So, last year we played down.
Opposite this on Royal Street.
No, we were in the next block. Yeah, we were the other side of St. Peter. Remember?
No, well, usually we play.
I mean, we were the other side of St. Anne. We're on the other side of St. Anne. Yeah. Usually we like to play on Royal and Toulouse. I even wrote a song about it. And no words, just melody. And it used to be a store that closed at 6 o'clock, and there was a battle as to who could get there first, and we won it frequently. And that was where we were playing when we got our second booking to Europe.
91.
We were performing, and these 2 men came up, and they wanted our information because they wanted to book us in Saint-Nazaire. And we were totally excited. And shortly after they left, the police came up and told us that we were too loud with our amplifier and to turn it off.
So on Mardi Gras Day, have you ever been here on Mardi Gras?
Yeah.
You know how noisy
It's
it
really
is?
quiet.
You must have been really disturbing the peace. I mean, come
Oh
on.
God, yeah.
And the people next door upstairs invited us to come up and have some drinks and go to the bathroom and calm down because David was just,
I get irate very easily.
and nobody ever sees it except me. Everybody just goes, Roselyn, you're just horrible to David because, you know, I'll go, and David is going, you know, and he doesn't usually, but when he gets mad, then I shouldn't jump in between him and anybody else because he's gonna. We were at Mary Student Housing, and we were getting ready to come down here for the registration of voters, and we had already subleased our house, so we were staying with friends across the street while David had to do some last minute repairs on Plymouth that we were driving down there, and we were staying upstairs with our friends, and she and I had gone to the laundromat to do our laundry, and we came back and we were coming up the stairs and carrying the laundry because coming up the inside stairs, they weren't straight. Like coming up here, it was like this, like this, and not like this, you know, in order to get in. And so that's how we'd gone out when we were coming up. And we got to the top of the stairs, and this big bruiser comes out the door and goes, "You're waking up my wife!" We're sorry. And he grabbed my basket of clean clothes and threw it over the thing, at which point I started screaming at him, and David came running out to see what I was screaming about, and the guy turned around and he's gonna to punch David. I mean, he weighed more than the two of us put together, you know, and so he pulls back his hand to get out to David. I jumped on his back. And I'm choking him with one hand and beating on his ears with the other. David's the other guy whose house we were at was awakened by all the noise, and he came out right behind David, and he grabbed David and then let him go because it was obvious there was not going to be any punches except mine. Bang, bang, bang. I bet that guy's ear hurt for a month. But Shep says, "What's going on here?" And being a philosophy major, he calmed everybody down and made everybody feel that life was better than this and we could all live together. And we apologized and promised never to come. We weren't even going to be there another week. And, you know, so he just, you know, nice. And that was Shepherd. And we didn't see him again after David graduated until we were playing on that corner, Royal and Toulouse one day, and he walked up and said, "David and Roselyn?" He had been a professor out at UNO for 7 years, and neither of us knew we were in town. And we've been playing quite regularly on the street. But he probably came down in the summer when we were in Europe. There was this, and he had changed his name, which is how come I didn't mind saying Shepherd, because he changed his name and remarried. I think he was on his third wife.
I think so.
Yeah. So
Well, you guys have been married how long?
What's that?
How long have you guys been married?
57 years, 2 months, and 16 days.
Attaboy.
It sounds like a prison sentence, right? But you know what? On our 50th wedding anniversary, we got all of our friends together and went on a cruise down to Cozumel. And when we came back, I said, "David, I cooked for the first 50 years. You get to cook for the next 50. So he's hoping that he gets to cook for 50 years.
I'll go for it.
Except it was funny because when I was the cook, I was always the one that was suggesting that we go out to eat. Guess who's always the one suggesting it now? Well, we worked in our house we're still working on our house, But the immediate damage was some of the tiles had come off the roof, so they had to be replaced. But the chimneys came down, and they had to be redone. And the thing is that had the chimneys come down while the roof was still the way it was before, the roof had been done in the days of slates. And so it did not have an underlying layer of wood. It had tar paper. And there were like about this wide.
Gaps.
No, there were this wide pieces of wood here,
Yeah.
and then a gap about this long, and then another pieces of wood. And the slates held each other down, so it wasn't a problem. But the asphalt was starting to come up, and it was coming up from the bottom, so it was, like going up like that. But had it not been replaced with wood on top of that, and then the asphalt slates, when the chimneys came down, they would have taken it all in.
Right.
And so the whole inside of the house would have been water. As it was, the water that came in the house came in because the street flooded, and there was no place for water to go.
Right.
And so we had about 2.5 feet of water, and the mold went up the walls.
Yeah.
And people were so nice. We had people coming from all over the world to help us rebuild. We had some kids that painted our house. That was just so sweet. We just I wish they were there now because it needs repainting.
Yeah, we get that point.
And David poked his hand through a piece of wood the other day. I said, "Why did you do that? Now there's a hole into the house."
Yeah, it needs to be fixed.
Yeah, you should fix that immediately.
I also usually try to give these guys an opportunity to ask you a question. Do you guys have questions?
Yeah, how do you guys feel the current street music scene is in New Orleans? Do you
It's
feel
very
like
difficult.
Yeah, do you think it's got better since you guys first started? Or?
Oh, there are magnificent performers on the street.
Yeah,
They
there's
are
tons of
fantastic.
people come in
There
and play.
kids come in from all over the world to play. There's no room for us anymore.
No, when we started, okay, it's time to go to work, and we go out there and get
About
a
11
spot.
o'clock
But
we
now,
get a
if we want to
spot.
go out and get a spot, we gotta go like 10, 20 hours before and stay there.
Yeah, for a
And
while
we're just
we
not
were.
into that anymore.
For a while we were. We would live in our
We had a big van.
Big Dodge camper. No, well, it wasn't a camper. It was a Dodge van, but it was wide enough I could sleep stretched out in the back seat, and David slept in the middle seat. And we would spin. We would put our pole up, and for a while we would tie a empty
Guitar
case to it, which was funny because I think we put tambourine or something in it so that when people moved it, we'd hear it, even though there was nothing in it. And so a couple of times we, enjoyed asking people, "Can I help you?" They were-
So now we haven't been playing the street very much lately, and which is nice to take a break because spend so much time not doing anything except holding the spot until it's playing time.
Well, the bigger bands can have 5 or 10 people, and they can,
Spend,
you
you got the 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. shift, and you got the 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. shift.
or they can have one person do it tonight, another person do it tomorrow night, so that your time isn't spent there. And we can't really do that because David doesn't feel comfortable with me being out there by myself all night, and I don't feel comfortable with him being out there all by himself. I mean, David is not exactly what you call somebody big and muscular and likely to fight anybody, but he would. he would. If somebody who
I
was,
tried to one night. I had this drunk kept trying to break into the van, and I kind of lost it and got out of the van and started having a fight when all of a sudden, so the street performer comes up with the can in his face.
No.
Yeah, I'm really glad to see him, but you've got the spot already, okay? I'll go play somewhere else. So it's just not, I'd like to go out and play, but I don't like to go out and we get out there at 6 o'clock in the morning in
5
the
o'clock.
square, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and we get to play from by 7 o'clock at night, we got 3 hours of playing time. You know, and that's I could do a lot in that period of time that having to do with making money. So we'd like to get gigs, but it's difficult because we're really not on top of the current songs. You know, we know a lot of old stuff and some stuff we've written, and I like a steady gig.
I don't like city gigs.
I love steady gigs.
I find them boring.
They're never boring. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, well,
Other than that, they
the
don't work.
last steady gig that I really liked was the one we did in Detroit at the New Joint, spelled
The
GNU.
new joint? What about the place in Greektown? Played for like 13 weeks again. It was a restaurant.
Yeah, I didn't care when that one was over.
It was a nice
I-
gig,
I-
7 to 10. Wonderful hours.
Yeah, but it was
Good food too.
boring. You know, like, what you had to do was just pretend you were playing for yourself, because you didn't really have an audience. You were just background music. They could have just been playing elevator music, and it would have been exactly the same. They would feel kept eating and talking and not paying any attention to you at all. And I don't like those kind of gigs. David doesn't care. He could sit and play all day long, and
I've
it
learned
doesn't
that
matter.
wealthy drunks are as obnoxious as poor drunks. We find out we're playing a country club up in outside of
Michigan.
Detroit, in Michigan, and they were talking about their golf scores or trying to score with pick up a woman or pick up a man, whichever, and they weren't listening. They weren't, it was just background.
And it's just so dumb. And they had factories here in Louisiana that they took out because they were having to pay them high wages. I mean, and now people are opposed to their even having any more of the folks out there on the pumping oil out of, but they're there. They're out there. They're doing it right now, and they have accidents on them like daily.
The offshore oil rigs.
Yeah, and the oil things that are coming down from Canada and there is an oil leak every day. Different sizes. Some of them are really bad enough that people, and they're taking people's land who don't want. I mean, individual, not just the Indian land, which of course we've been stealing Indian land since we got here, but a woman got arrested on her own land because she had not signed wouldn't sign the contract with them, and they came on her land anyway. Now you think that they would be arrested? They got money. She's arrested, and people just go, "Oh, isn't that awful?" As opposed to, "No, you can't do that. If you do it to her, you ain't do it to me." And, yeah. C'est la vie. Such is life. Das ist
Das
das Leben.
yeah, all right. So ist das Leben.
So ist das Leben.
So ist das Leben.
Ja.
Ja,
Ja.
alles klar.
Did you have a question?
I actually had the same question, so yeah. Thank you.
Did we answer it?
Yes.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun after Katrina, staying at Mike's house. David was riding us back down every day to work in the house, 7 miles. And I would come down later in the car. We would go down to, there was a big, huge tent, probably as big as this house, that they fed people.
Big dome out in
And we
East
decided
New
that we would
Orleans.
go and play for them for free, not even asking for tips, just playing. That we go down and play for our supper, which was a lot of fun.
Well, there was money available for that. We played at some restaurants near us. They didn't pay us, but we were paid out. But it was fun.
Well,
And we played for
Bethany
some
was-
old
was-
folks' homes. That was a lot of fun.
That was Bethany's.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was having, working on paying for musicians to perform because there's no places for them to perform. We also played at the church, St. Anna's down on 1300
Esplanade.
Esplanade, yeah. And that was
Once a week
marvelous.
they had something down there.
Yeah, and that was somebody else that helped you get Lady Fest going. Was
And we helped get Royal Street opened up again because after the storm, they just let traffic go through, regular traffic, so there's no performing on it. And the owners of the stores, owners of the buildings were getting upset because their people who were paying for the space to use weren't making enough money to pay their rent.
and of course the rent owners had to make repairs and up their rental
Roselyn
costs.
wrote a letter to the editor.
And no, they kept asking me, Roselyn, why don't you do something to make them open the room again? I said, well, why should I do it? And I was just sort of like, after a while, I got okay, and I sat down and wrote a letter, and they printed it, and shortly after that, they closed up the mall was back again, and so everybody was like, "Hey, Roselyn." I think nothing of it. It's just a computer.
Oh, we've changed the laws here.
That's true.
We,
My name is in the law books,
Oh, yeah.
but I use my stage name,
we-
Lionheart.
We sued the city, we sued the state. We have a
All three of them.
wonderful
Oh, there's somebody
civil
you should
rights
interview.
lawyer, Mary Howell. And she's done a whole lot to make sure that the streets are open.
And she can tell you a lot more about the underside of the city because she represents a lot of people who are indigent, and she works suing the city anytime they, mess up, and then they have to pay her, which is very good.
When
And
they-
she's not rich. She just doesn't want to be. She's I don't particularly want to be rich. I just want to be comfortable. I think that the idea of walking outside the door and people go, Roselyn. As a matter of fact, sometimes that happens, and somebody will be just like fawning all over you, and you just sort of, it's embarrassing, you just, you wish they'd say, oh, I really enjoyed such and such and such, and they could even give you a hug as long as they would then go away, but, and I don't mind posing for pictures, that's not a problem with me either, but I feel sorry for people that can't take a step outside the door without disguising themselves, and they can't, go walking their kids,
Poor people.
They're rich,
They
they're
have to
filthy
buy a
rich.
estate to live on. So we have gone to the city council. When we got here, it was you could use an amplifier, but you were not supposed to be heard clearly audible beyond 25 feet. If you didn't have an amplifier, you couldn't be clearly audible beyond 50 feet.
Now, does that make sense to you?
So
You could play a
we
trumpet.
challenged that.
You could play a trumpet, but you couldn't play a guitar with an amp.
Yeah. So we fought that, and we won, and we went to the city council after we got busted once and said, this is illegal. And we did, do you know what it means to miss New Orleans?
No, we did.
With
Oh, yeah, right,
amplification.
you're right.
No, everybody loved it. And then we said, that's illegal because we're using an amplifier. Now this is legal. It's brought out our
My
banjo and
banjo,
my
got
trumpet.
his
and
trumpet, and we went to town, and we said,
we did the Saints and had them marching around the city hall, the second line of the city hall. And now this is legal. What's the story? It's a heck of a lot louder. So we got it changed, and we had to go to court. several
and
times.
we've and it's like every 3 years or so, somebody decides that it's too noisy and they're going to do something about it. Just about. I mean, it's almost like a clock every 3 years. One guy had waited 7 years.
7 years.
To get into one of the Pentalba buildings. Oh, they're that way. No, they're that way. And 7 years he waited to get in. And then when he got in, he objected to the fact that there was music across the street at the cafe.
Dumont, yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't know that. He caused a lot of problems.
I mean, you were here 7 years.
He sued the city for not enforcing.
No, that was somebody else. That was that lawyer.
Oh yeah, well
The
there's
lawyer
that one too.
that the
He's still
guy
hassling
tried,
people.
the guy that owned the clover there, he was hassling him about being too loud. The guy hired a couple of people to kill him. So he's in jail. The awful lawyer is still out. Isn't that horrible?
Yeah.
I think that it's awful that he hired somebody to kill him. But I think it's too bad that he had to go to jail. The other guy's still out there making.
We were playing on Royal Street at this one place. We had this woman really gave us a rough time. An older woman. She just lived around the corner.
We found out later on that she had
She used to be a dancer on Bourbon Street, in one of the
burlesque
real
dancer.
burlesque dancers. She called the Woman of 1,000 Moves. Maybe she'd make one more move.
out of the corner.
I was reading a book called Last Madam of New Orleans. This woman had a whorehouse on 1426 Conti for 40 years before she finally got busted. And she entertained all kinds of people there. And
Paid off
she
his
knew this
costs.
woman who was dancing on Bourbon Street called the Woman of 1,000 Moves. So that was interesting to find out a little piece of history of it. Her friends didn't know why she was complaining about street reform, but she moved eventually.
No, well, you left out the most important part of it.
Oh.
We were out there playing one day, and she came up to me and grabbed me and was pulling me across the street, shouting at me. And I'm talking to her, let me go. You have no right to touch me. Let me go. And I was just getting ready to slug her when I went, no, Roselyn, don't do that. Just keep talking. And a cop came up behind me. And I said, officer, make this woman let me go. I was so glad I didn't hit her. Because if I hit her, I'd have knocked her down. I'd have been in jail, right? They didn't take her to jail for dragging me across the street, but he made her leave me alone. And she moved shortly thereafter.
She
I
was,
think she was afraid that I was going to slug her and she showed up again.
we had another guy moved in, a jewelry store moved in, and he complained about all the street performers. Just complained. He right there on Bourbon.
He would make
Wall
up things
Street.
about it.
Make up things about it. And some of the kids, oh man, he's out there videotaping us. He came out and videotaped us one time. We had a big crowd. They said, see this gentleman over here videotape? He owns that jewelry store right there, and he hates street performers. We became friends.
But he didn't there much longer because he got arrested for tax evasion.
Yeah.
Tax evasion. Yeah. There's stories. There's so many stories in this city, and we've lived here for 45 years.
40 is good enough.
43, that's right.
Yeah.
And so we have about, like 12 stories a year at least.